Hello everyone, Andrew here, hope you're well. Today I'm going to talk about wisdom teeth, why we have them and why they cause so many issues, and also what you can do to prevent issues with your wisdom teeth and what may be required if you do have problems. So, wisdom teeth are essentially the last teeth that come in at the back of your mouth. They will tend to come in anywhere from the age of, anytime from the age of 18 onwards, and they will often come in your late teens, maybe earlier, even late 20s, or sometimes even later than that. Lots of people don't have them. Probably about a third of people are missing some of their wisdom teeth, but the majority of people do have wisdom teeth, and a large number of people get issues with their wisdom teeth. We have wisdom teeth because in the past, before we ate cooked food all the time, when we ate raw foods, when we lived in caves, when we had a much rougher diet, our teeth were worn down much more than they are with our modern diets. And so because teeth were worn much more, we needed these extra teeth at the back to come in as the teeth wore down and everything squashed forward to fill up the gaps that had been worn away. The wisdom teeth came in and they filled up those gaps. So that's basically why we have wisdom teeth. It's why we have basically these extra teeth right at the back of our mouths. They come in to fill the gaps that would have been created by our tougher diet in the past when we ate more raw foods and our teeth wore down much more. Now, today we mainly eat cooked foods, we eat a much softer diet, and therefore our teeth don't wear down nearly as much as they did in the past. And so because of that, there isn't the space created that our wisdom teeth need. And that's why often wisdom teeth will only get part way through into the mouth, and that's when they start to cause problems. So basically these extra teeth start to come through, the space isn't there for them, and what happens is with a lot of people, their wisdom teeth get kind of stuck part way. So they'll either get kind of butted up against the tooth in front, or they'll just won't be enough opening at the gap for them to come all the way through. And basically, essentially what will happen in those situations is the tooth is part way through, and there's a layer of gum, there's a flap of gum sitting over the top of wisdom teeth. And what will happen in those situations, in those scenarios, you get food and bugs and bacteria getting in between the wisdom tooth, which is part way through, and the flap of gum which is sitting over the top. And when plaque and bugs and bacteria and bits of food get trapped below the gum around the wisdom tooth, you've got bacteria trapped in a space, and they start to grow, they start to proliferate, and that's when you get an infection. And that might cause pain, that might cause swelling, that might cause, often with wisdom tooth pain, you'll have some pain, you'll have some swelling, you'll have limited opening, so you won't be able to open your mouth as far as you normally would. And the whole area around the wisdom tooth will be swollen, essentially. So it all comes from a wisdom tooth not being all the way through and bacteria getting down below the gum, causing irritation, causing inflammation, causing infection. All the issues stem from bacteria getting below the gum. So how can we prevent those issues? If you can keep, even if your wisdom tooth is part way through, if you can keep that area perfectly clean, you are going to massively reduce the number of issues that you get with your wisdom teeth. So if you can keep the bugs and the food and the plaque out of that area, and it's not easy because, as I said, the wisdom teeth, they're coming through right at the back, they're coming through behind all of the other teeth. It's a really tricky area to reach with your brushing, with your cleaning. But if you can focus on that, and what you could do with your brushing is when you move on to each new quarter, when you're working your way around your teeth, so with brushing, you're brushing for at least 2 minutes. That means you should be spending at least 30 seconds on each area. If you have wisdom teeth, I mean, everyone, to be honest, something like an electric toothbrush makes life much, much easier for the vast majority of people, but especially if you have areas that are hard to keep clean. So that maybe you've had gum disease in the past and you've had recession, so bits of food trap around the necks of teeth. Or it could be that you have some missing teeth, so you have gaps. So again, it's easy for bits of food and plaque to build up in those areas which are harder to reach because teeth have been lost. Or if you have big fillings, etc. Again, an electric toothbrush is going to make life much easier. It's exactly the same with wisdom teeth. So if you have a wisdom tooth which is part way through, basically an electric toothbrush does the work for you. That's the idea. The main two brands with electric toothbrushes are either Philips Sonicare or Oral-B, so Braun Oral-B. They are both excellent. My personal preference is Oral-B, but Sonicare is great as well, so it basically comes down to what you prefer. But with your electric toothbrush, because it's doing the work for you, you can just try and get as far back into your mouth as you can, try and reach that wisdom tooth, and that will, especially with say an Oral-B, when it's doing the rotating action, that will be really, really good at picking away and removing the plaque and bacteria which are going to be the cause of any issues that you get with your wisdom teeth. If you get issues with your wisdom teeth, you're going to need to visit a dentist, and it may be that if there's a swelling, if there's an obvious infection, it may be that they prescribe you antibiotics. That could be a couple of different antibiotics depending on whether you're fit and well, depending on when you have any allergies. It's either going to be a penicillin like amoxicillin, or quite often it will be an antibiotic called metronidazole. Metronidazole is very, very good for gum infections, and that's essentially what's going on with a wisdom tooth. It's bugs and bacteria getting below the gum, causing a gum infection. The dentist may also be able to flush out and irrigate and remove as much food and plaque and bacteria around the wisdom tooth as possible, and that will almost certainly be the first step. If it's the first time you've had an issue with a wisdom tooth, first thing to do is to try and deal with the symptoms, try and deal with any infection. If a wisdom tooth becomes a persistent issue, it may be that your dentist recommends that you have the wisdom tooth extracted. Depending on how many wisdom teeth you have, and depending on how many are through and what the cause of the problem is, sometimes it can be a little bit counterintuitive with wisdom teeth, but you need to let your dentist guide you, because sometimes with a lower wisdom tooth, they can be harder to extract than a top wisdom tooth, and even if the infection keeps coming around the bottom wisdom tooth, if the top wisdom tooth keeps bashing down onto the gum above the lower wisdom tooth, sometimes it's a good idea to extract the top wisdom tooth first, even though that's not the most obvious cause of the problem. However, coming back to what I said earlier, the vast majority of issues with wisdom teeth will come from the fact that bugs and plaque and bacteria are getting below the gum. So, if you can keep your wisdom teeth really nice and clean, if you're getting to them twice a day with a toothbrush, morning and night before you go to bed, if you're cleaning away, if you're brushing away anything that could get below the gum and cause an infection, cause an irritation, cause something to kind of blow up in that area, then you are going to massively reduce the number of issues that you get with wisdom teeth. And so, even if you've had an issue with a wisdom tooth, if it's the first time, or maybe even if it's just the second time, but it's not looking like it's becoming a persistent issue, it may be that with better cleaning, you can manage the issue of wisdom teeth and avoid having them extracted. Sometimes with wisdom teeth, as I mentioned earlier, they will be kind of, if you imagine that's the last molar tooth, and then the wisdom tooth comes in and butts into that tooth. Where the wisdom tooth gets stuck, this area between the two teeth unfortunately can basically become impossible to clean. In those scenarios, it may be that there's no choice but to extract a tooth. And especially in the scenario where the wisdom tooth is coming through, it's butting into the tooth in front, and it's starting to cause decay here, you need to let your dentist guide you. It's going to be very, very tricky to fill and repair this area because it tends to be around the gum line or even below the gum line that the decay starts, and an extraction may well be required. So it could be that the best thing to do is to extract the wisdom tooth. Sometimes, depending on how big the hole has become, it may be that the tooth in front needs extraction. That's of course on a case-by-case basis, and you would need to discuss that with your dentist. Now, if you are unable to get to the dentist, and if you are having symptoms that you believe mean that there's an issue with your wisdom tooth, so as I mentioned earlier, there could be pain, there could be swelling, and it feels like it's right at the back of your mouth. You may be aware that there's a tooth that is part way through, your wisdom tooth is not fully through the gum. And if you're getting limited opening, so you can't open your mouth as far as you normally would, so you're getting pain when opening, you're maybe getting pain when chewing, and you're maybe finding that when you're trying to, say, put something like a fork into your mouth, you can't get the fork in, or you can't get, say, a mouthful of food on a fork into your mouth. Those are all indications that you may have an active infection with your wisdom tooth. If you're not able to get to the dentist straight away, or if you're not able to get to the dentist at all, several things to try. Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, you need to try and get that area, you need to try and keep that area as clean as you possibly can. So that's toothbrushing, that may be mouth washing as well with a fluoride fluoride mouthwash, sorry. So brushing, getting into that area with a toothbrush, maybe using a fluoride mouthwash again to rinse that area, cleaning, flushing that area. If there is any kind of pus that's coming out of the area, it's not going to taste very nice, but you may be able to very carefully massage the area and move and remove as much pus as possible. If you can remove pus, if you can massage some pus out of the area, you're going to very quickly reduce the infection in that area. The other thing that you could try, as well as cleaning and as well as using a fluoride mouthwash, what you could do maybe 2 or 3 times a day is a salty mouth rinse. So to do that, take a tumbler of warm water, a glass of warm water, a teaspoon of salt, mix that up, take a mouthful, rinse it around your mouth, and then make sure you spit out, and then take another mouthful and keep doing that until you've done the whole tumbler, the whole glass of salty water. Make sure every time you're spitting out the salty water, it does taste horrible, I've done this myself, it does taste horrible, but the salty water just helps to clean the area, and hopefully if there's infection in the area, helping to take that infection down. That's about it for wisdom teeth. They can be a real nuisance. The best thing that you can do with wisdom teeth is to try and prevent them from being a problem. So if you have had grumblings in the past, you feel like there has been the beginning of an infection, or you have had an infection in your wisdom tooth in the past, or you are aware that there's a tooth at the back of your mouth which is part way through, you need to do everything you can at every time that you clean your teeth, so at least twice a day, you need to make sure you are focusing on the areas where the wisdom teeth are coming through. You need to be getting in there with a manual or an electric toothbrush. As I said, an electric toothbrush, you can get a great clean with a manual brush, but an electric toothbrush does the work for you, and it makes life so much easier. So just do your best in terms of getting in there with whichever toothbrush you're using, really try and make sure that no bugs and plaque and bacteria are building up in that area. Even if your wisdom tooth is part way through, you will find with effective cleaning, you can vastly reduce, you can really minimize the issues that you're going to get with wisdom teeth. And if you can get those areas really nice and clean, what you will sometimes also find is that the gum itself around the wisdom tooth shrinks back a little bit, and that may allow the tooth to come through a little bit further. But ultimately, even if the tooth doesn't come through any further, it just means if you've been able to brush back that the flap of gum over your wisdom tooth a little bit, that just makes that area so much easier to clean. And you will find, even if your cleaning slackens off a little bit, you can maintain those areas much more easily, and you will get far fewer problems. So wisdom teeth can be a big issue. If you can't get to a dentist, really what you want to be doing is keeping those areas just as clean as you possibly can, and maybe using a salty mouth rinse. Make sure you're spitting out the salty water. If you can, see a dentist or a doctor, you know, it may be that no active treatment is required. If there is an active swelling or infection, something like antibiotics are probably going to help. If in any scenario you find that you have a large swelling underneath your jaw, and if you feel that it's spreading to your airway, if you feel like your swallowing is vastly changed, sometimes with wisdom tooth issues, yes, you'll just be aware of it when you're swallowing, but if you feel like the swelling is growing and it's spreading so that it's really affecting you when you swallow, or it's really affecting, you know, it's starting to affect your breathing in any way, if you feel like your airway is being impinged because there's a growing infection, you need to go to accident emergency, you need to go to hospital straight away. That's quite rare, but it's an important thing I just wanted to mention right at the end here. Hopefully that's been helpful. Ultimately, with wisdom teeth, they can be a real problem because there's just not space in our mouth. You know, if we have 4 wisdom teeth coming through, the vast majority of us won't have space for those wisdom teeth to come through. If they are coming through, if they're part way through, they can be a big problem. But if you can keep each area where a wisdom tooth is coming through clean, if you can keep bugs and bacteria, because that's what's causing the issues. It's bugs and bacteria getting below the gum. If you can keep those areas clean, you're going to remove the bacteria, you're going to vastly reduce the issues that you have.